Good evening and welcome to episode 76 of the Jacksonian. I'm yours truly, Jatson Johnson, and I have with me is the one and only host of Locked on Kansas State and host of Blueprint, the one and only himself, Christian Rauh. Is that right?
Yeah, Rauh. I like to tell people it's like Owen Wilson with an R in front of it. How Owen Wilson says "Wow," Rauh.
Yeah, Christian Rauh. Well, let me tell you something. You're going to be in for a wild ride with Christian Rauh as we will be going over our take on the latest on Kansas State football, including our take on Week 0 and what's to come from the 2025 NFL season. You're going to be in for a fun one, ladies and gentlemen. How you doing today, good buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing good, buddy. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to talk Kansas State. It's going to be a really exciting season this year, and we get to start the year off. I mean, college football gets a taste of Kansas State right away. Week 0 against Iowa State, a Big 12 matchup in Dublin, Ireland. It's going to be super exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing Avery Johnson on full display, and a lot of people are underrating him, putting him super low, and I think that's going to change very quickly on August 23rd.
Well, for those who don't know about you, would you like to tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm a military veteran. I've been doing sports content ever since I got out of the military in 2018. I've been all over the place. I found myself covering baseball, college sports, you name it. I've worked for Athlon Sports. I've worked for Sports Illustrated, and now I've been with Locked on Kansas State for about 7 months now. We're just going into the first full football season. Just hit 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Have great, great community over on Locked on Kansas State with my everydayers. And now I'm just looking to expand on that. I do have a couple things on the side that I work on, as you mentioned, with the Blueprint Sports Network of 32 Blueprint, where I do cover the NFL. But my prime job is covering Kansas State every single day. And I love it. Absolutely love talking about the Wildcats.
Oh man, well, I'll just tell you this: like you'll love where I got Kansas State going for this season.
All right. Okay.
I won't give it away till like middle part for sure. But oops, fourth wall break on the Jacksonian. Oh man. So as we start off the 2025 season, we're going to be starting off with Kansas State, Iowa State, and Ireland. Now, when that announcement was made, we're going to see Farmageddon in Week 0 in Ireland. What was the reaction when that happened?
I want to say it was a little bit of positive and negative, right? Now, let's do the negative side first. Obviously, losing a home game in Manhattan's never fun. Because of the atmosphere at Bill Snyder Family Stadium is just absolutely electric. It's so fun to watch just college football in Manhattan. But at the same time, when you try to expand it, Jackson, and try to talk about like bigger picture for the Big 12, for college football as a whole, Dublin's done quite well in the past couple of years. When you think about some of the amazing jerseys they've had, you think of some of those electric games they've had in the past few years as well. And then you think about, okay, now we're getting a conference matchup between two Big 12 opponents. Not only is it two Big 12 opponents, but you're getting Iowa State, who was just in Arlington last year for the Big 12 championship. They did fall, of course, but they made it. They bring back a lot of players as well. And then you have the tying Armageddon rivalry to it, which is one of the most underrated rivalries in college football. We don't talk about it enough. It's not even really talked about enough in our circles in Manhattan. If you know about Farmageddon, you know it's the best rivalry. I even think it's a bigger rivalry than KU and Kansas State, at least in the eyes of college football. And you're talking about Kansas State, who's on the up and up right now. And I can tell just by what you were alluding to, maybe speculating about how you feel about Kansas State in this season, it's going to be a really good game. So I'm both sided. I can understand why people are upset about it because you're losing a home game in Manhattan, but it's a chance. It's a chance to put Kansas State on the map right at the very beginning of the college football season, right where you started off 7-1 last year. You fell down to 8-4. You had a rough second half. Now you get to take all that bad taste out of the mouths of everybody who's thinking badly of Kansas State right away and start strong against Iowa State before anybody else gets a chance to do so.
Well, the winner of that game is obviously going to have a lot of momentum coming their way. But, it's just going to be interesting to see what's happening in Week 0 on ESPN at noon. And, oh my God, I forget what time it is over in Ireland. Dadgummit, I'm supposed to be looking at time zones and all that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what time it is either. I'm not going over to Dublin myself, so I can't say that I've been paying attention to what time. The thing is, I should probably know that. But I know that it's a 10 o'clock central game, or excuse me, an 11 o'clock central game. And a lot of people are not happy with that, saying we traveled all the way across the pond and we're still getting a game at Saturday at 11 a.m. And I think they wanted a little bit more prime time to start the year. But hey, look, this is the first taste of college football. You don't get any other week zero games before you get this one. So this is the very first game. And I think that's special. That's something that you get to hold on to the whole year. Now, is that something that might bite you in the butt later on, moving down the rest of the year? Because you have to start the season early. You're hoping to get to the college ball playoffs and back to Arlington for the first time since 2022. Well, with a schedule that's a week earlier than most, injuries come up and they pop up, and hopefully that's not something that they have to deal with once you get the week 11, 12, and hopefully into the conference championship.
I mean, it's way better than Michigan, Western Michigan, and Germany.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure what I think about that. We'll see, right? I mean, that's not is that truly a rivalry? Western, I mean, that's to me, it's like Michigan, Ohio State. Obviously, you're not going to get rid of that one and take that one to Germany, but I'm fair enough to say that this is a game that you would compare that to. This is a rivalry in the Big 12
Well,
when it
yeah.
comes to Iowa State and Kansas State. It might not be on a nationwide as big as Michigan, Ohio State, but in the local theater, in the Midwest, if you're talking Farmageddon here, you're thinking Iowa State, you're thinking Kansas State. And again, I think it's one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated rivalry in all of college sports.
Oh yeah, I mean, because it's like K State and Iowa State have been fantastic throughout the last few years. Like I know, like Kansas State, they've done very well with Bill Snyder. Before
Mhm.
he got there, they were a crap hole, and then like after Bill Snyder retires, Ron Prince, mid retires, and the day I'm getting my hair cut at 11 years old on a Sunday, Bill Snyder comes out of retirement and is getting his second stint. Kansas State's rocking and rolling, and this time he's making sure they've got a plan. He's like, I'm not doing this again. I am not coaching at 90 years old. No, y'all are getting Chris Kleiman, and they do.
Yeah, and I think Chris Kleiman is the perfect person to fill the shoes of a very mighty big shoes, if you will, of Bill Snyder. He's the perfect successor, if that's probably the better word. I think he does a great job. I think he brings that Midwest mentality. He already had some fantastic FCS experience and success when he was in his prior coaching. He's an Iowa kid as well, so he's built in the Midwest. It fits him, and the behavior, the attitude, the culture, everything that Chris Kleiman brings to the table is Bill Snyder light, if you will. I think he brings his own kind of touch to it, but I think he's a perfect successor for Bill Snyder. I really like what Chris Kleiman does and what he brings to Kansas State. And he focuses on fit. And I think that's really important, especially when you're talking about a Midwest team in the Big 12. You're not always going to find these 5 stars or maybe even high 4 stars, Jackson, but what you have to do is you have to make the best out of what you can get and what you can bring into your program. And we see 2-star, 3 stars, whatever the case may be, turn into NFL talent. We saw a walk-on and Jacob Parrish become a 3rd-round NFL draft pick this past season for the Kansas State Wildcats. And you got to give a lot of credit to Chris Kleiman and his recruiting staff and his coaching staff for the development and for finding that type of fit. They continue to do that year in and year out. And I think that's what makes it so exciting to follow this program.
Oh yeah, I mean, because it's like we don't know about there being a lot of consistency throughout the Big 12, but one thing you can really count on is that Kansas State is always going to be contending in the Big 12. That is the one consistent team that that's going to be consistent. And if they're having a really down year, like a sit year, that means the earth is burning.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's been quite some time since we've been there. I mean, just having an 8-4 season, 9-4 if you add the bowl game win, has been a disappointment, right? Especially since you started the season so strong last year, only having 9 wins the last couple seasons since getting to Arlington in 2022 has easily been a disappointment because the talent on the roster is so much better. And when you look at what you're supposed to see this upcoming year, although the schedule is a pretty tough schedule, might you add, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, man, this schedule gets a little bit more intense. I don't know how I feel about this schedule. At first, I'm like 12-0, no doubt. Now I'm like, okay, are we going to get to that 10-win mark? because there's just a lot of tough games on the schedule. I don't like the road schedule at the end of the year as well. But I do think the ceiling of this team is at least 10-2 with 2 losses in the schedule. If I had to go, and you highlighting one of them right now, if I had to go on a prediction, Jackson, and say what I think this record's going to be and where their losses come, I think they go 10-2 and they finish with a 2-loss record in the conference. I think that'll be good enough to still make it to Arlington. I don't like that Saturday, October 4th game in Waco against Baylor Bears. Waco is always a tough place to play. I don't know what I think about Baylor this year. I know Dave Aranda is coming out with some crazy things to talk about, but Baylor is one of those teams that you really got to watch out for. And then you highlighted Utah towards the bottom. There's a lot of hype about the Utah Utes, especially coming back, playing them and playing Oklahoma State in Stillwater. There's no way in my mind with the Big 12, as much parity as this conference has from top to bottom. I mean, look at last year. We predicted Arizona State to finish last in the conference. They win the whole dang thing, find themselves in the college football playoffs. There's no way that Oklahoma State and Utah will both be at the bottom in the Big 12 yet again. And we have to play them back-to-back on the road in 2025. So I'm going to go 10-2. My predictions are losses against Baylor and Utah, but I think it's still good enough to make it to Arlington on December 6th.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Kansas State, to be honest with you, losing to Utah. That's like my only loss for them. Because, I mean, like Colorado, they're rebuilding for this year. I mean, Colorado's going to have a say in who gets in the Big 12 title, but that's it. Oklahoma State, I feel like they'll be good enough to be a bowl team. Texas Tech, they're kind of like the Syracuse of college football, where everybody's talking about Syracuse basketball, but nobody's talking about their football program enough. I think it's the same thing with Texas Tech. Everybody spends all their time talking about their football program, how great they are in the recruiting trail and NIL, but people forget that they're mid during the regular season and the fact that they're a good basketball team. That's pretty much it. And I know like Kansas State has been beating Kansas consistently since 2009, but Kansas almost upset Kansas State last year. And I don't think Lance Leopold and Kansas are going to forget about that. But, it's like that is one game I feel like can really put a scare into Kansas State. Army.
They've been close games. They've been close games lately, but until they can beat us, I'm not considering that one a rivalry, and B, a game that I'm worried about on the schedule.
Well, I mean, because it was like at one point, Alabama had the longer winning streak than Kansas State did against Tennessee, but then like Tennessee in that losing streak, well, Kansas State's now got the longest active winning streak against a rival in all of college football.
Mm-hmm.
So, but Army, now that's a scary team, of course.
Army could be an interesting game. Now they did lose a lot of players and they did lose some returning, but they always play tough. They've always played tough. Now they did lose their star running back in Udo. He's now at Arizona State. We'll see what they can actually bring back in returning type of talent. But last year they were very successful. I mean, most of the service academies, with the exception of Air Force, were very successful last year. And I would like to see Army do well, just not on September 6th. I think they'll be fine. I'm actually a little nervous about North Dakota because what we have seen, and not nervous where I think they're going to lose, but I think they might stall a little bit. What we've seen over the last couple seasons, after you play in Dublin, they come back and they play against FCS opponents and they stall out. We've seen it happen with Northwestern. We've seen it happen with Nebraska. We've seen it happen in the past. And I don't want that to happen against North Dakota on the 30th. And then, of course, that Arizona Wildcats game on the 12th, that's a Big 12 school, but that's considered a non-conference game. If you look at that schedule, there are 10 Big 12 opponents for Kansas State this year. Only 9 of them are conference games. It's a tough schedule, Jackson. It's a very tough schedule, but I think they can get through it. And I think that's even going to give them that much more poise for Avery Johnson for this explosive offense that I think they are going to bring in 2025. And not only do I think that they're going to compete for a Big 12 championship, I think we're going to see them in the college football playoffs this year. I think we're going to see 2 teams from the Big 12, if I'm being completely honest.
Oh, that would be awesome. Like we see the Big 12 title runner-up get in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they're going to. What we see in the past is they don't, make you they don't hurt you for losing in the Big 12 title, right? We saw it happen with the ACC last year. We saw it happen in some of the other conference games. So, yeah, the runner up of the Big 12 championship, I could totally see making it in there, especially if you're talking about 2 10-win teams going after it in Arlington. I think they learned their lesson last year when it came to snubbing BYU and when it came to not giving Arizona State enough love in the college football playoffs and the seeding. Why you didn't see a meeting from the
committee, I swear, I feel like they didn't watch BYU SMU at all. They did. They were just like they were either watching the Packers Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil on the Peacock app, or they were watching Illinois, Kansas more than they were BYU, SMU. Me, I'm watching all three of them. I'm watching the Peacock game on my iPad. I'm watching, one of the games on the desktop, and I'm like watching it on the TV as well. So it's like I'm not keeping my eyes off on Friday night games because, like, I'm telling you right now, if you're a committee member, you need to watch all the games, not just the teams you like. I feel like they didn't watch BYU SMU because it's like that was a win that got better over the season for BYU. That was when a lot of people were throwing the baby out with the bathwater on SMU. Oh, they're not surviving in the AC. They had a tight win over Nevada in week 0. But then over time, SMU got to the AC title game with Rhett Lashley. Now, I'm not going to go as far as say like SMU is going to be winning natties, right? Because that's never going to happen. You're not seeing that. This isn't the 1930s where like Donald Duck's wearing his white hat and then like turning over to his blue hat in 1939. Not happening. Not happening. And this is not the 80s. No, not happening. But
yeah,
I think SMU can be like the TCU of the ACC when TCU was in the Mountain West, where you see like SMU in the conference title race every year with Coach Lashley there, as long as he's over in Dallas. My apologies about interrupting. What are you going to say?
No. You're good. I'm with you. I'm surprised that BYU never made it. I think that was a little bit of the Big 12's fault, and I think that's why they fixed it during media days by not having a preseason poll. We didn't give BYU or Arizona State any justice by kind of undermining them. Like, hey, for Arizona State, welcome to the conference. Just because it seems like a respectful thing to do, we're going to predict you towards the bottom of the thing in media polls because that's what you normally seem to happen, right? And it just didn't. I think it hurt them when it came to AP poll voting, and then it eventually turned into the college football committee voting to keep them so low. And of course, that happened with BYU. If you go head to head and you have that conversation, I mean, BYU beat SMU, but you still see SMU in the college football playoffs. There's one thing about battling for your conference championship and not getting, hurt for it from losing the game. And they mentioned that was going to happen, but you got to still keep head to heads in mind, and consistency is a very important thing. So overall, I do think that they're going to find a way to get 2 Big 12 teams into the college football playoffs this year. I'm not saying it's going to be the committee that makes that decision. I think the Big 12 is going to give them no choice because you're going to probably have at least 2 teams that have double-digit wins in the Big 12 in 2025. I personally think it's going to be Arizona State and Kansas State in Arlington.
I think one thing is for sure is like I feel like teams should have tougher non-con schedules, like in general, because I think that can help you really get it. Because like in case you get that big win on a Friday night or a Thursday night and not enough people are watching you, that will be like a big win that people can maybe pay attention more to, like, especially if it's a win getting better over the season.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you talk about, we keep hearing about all these cupcake schedules where SEC only has a certain amount of conference games, right? That's something that the Big 12 has 9 conference games on. SEC only has 8. Yeah, they do play a tougher non-conference schedule. I'm not going to take that away from them. But then you have the Big 10. 6 of their teams in the Big 10 don't play any power schools for their non-conference. You look at Kansas State, I'll use that for a prime example. You got 9 conference schedules, but then you got to play a 10th Big 12 team, although it's Arizona, and I do think they're going to be on the lower end of the Big 12 this year. But you got to play another conference opponent as your non-con. And might I add, that's a Power 4 team. So I think that Big 12 is not doing themselves any favors when it comes to keeping themselves strength of schedule. I think they're doing a really good job with that, actually, making sure they stay competitive. I mean, we're talking week 1, Baylor, Auburn. That's going to be a really tough matchup.
And they got SMU after Auburn.
Exactly. So I do think that we're going to see a really tough Big 12 conference yet again. And we're probably going to see a surprising team, just like what a lot of people didn't expect of Arizona State last year. We're probably going to see a team that was towards the bottom of the conference last year make themselves in the competition. And just like we had about 2 years ago, Jackson, where it was 2 weeks left to go in the season, there was a 7-way tiebreaker for who was going to make it to Arlington. And there's going to be a crazy scenario, and we're going to have to talk about it. And it's going to be super exciting. And that's probably where we're going to end up with the deepest conference in college football, the Big 12.
Oh, great. I mean, it's like good grief. Like, there's always people contending in the Big 12. It is a deep conference,
Super
but
deep.
ugh. You know, a theory that my good buddy Nathan Brown, Bomber Brown from CFB Mafia, and I've had him on this show several weeks back. And I know he's made this suggestion with Mark Rogers on the Voice of College Football before. Um, he thought because I want BYU Utah to be back on rivalry week, right? I don't think it should be played mid October. I don't think it needs to be played 3 weeks before rivalry week. I don't think it needs to be played September. It needs to be on rivalry week. And he has an idea to where if you have BYU Utah on rivalry week, it should be on the day before Thanksgiving. What do you think of that idea?
I don't hate it. I'm more just a fan of making sure that you protect the rivalries because we're losing some of those in some of these realignments, right? We're not getting them all over the place. Like, just for example, think of the Big Ten with some of these realignments. You're losing like the Apple Cup with Washington State. Now they are usually scheduling it for non-conference, but how long is that going to happen? Red River, right? Oklahoma State. Like, basically, we heard Mike Gundy of Oklahoma State say that he's gone on record saying that rivalry is basically already dead. They're, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State fans are drinking with each other now, and you just never thought that was going to happen, 5 years ago. So I'm more of the fan of just making sure the rivalries are protected. If you want to keep it as one rivalry week, that's fine by me. I don't really matter where they play. If you can play them week 0, like we're getting Farmageddon this year, or you can play them anywhere from week 1 to week 12. I actually wouldn't mind them being spread out because that would maybe make a more focus towards that certain rivalry. Have the Iron Bowl week 12, have the Holy War on week 9, give it more of a way to lead it up to. Could also give College Game Day a chance to go to that rivalry spot and make that happen. So I guess I'm a little bit partial on each side. I wouldn't mind seeing the Holy War before Thanksgiving. I think that'd be a perfect spot for it. But I don't really think you need a rivalry week in college football. I think we've expanded past that. I just want to make sure they're protected. Spread them out.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like I don't think like a lot of people are going to get too excited about like Utah, Kansas on Black Friday. They're going to be thinking more about like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Georgia, Georgia Tech. Like they're even going to be thinking about Indiana, Purdue more than like Utah, Kansas. That's nothing against Utah, Kansas, but it's just like I just think like Yormark is making a terrible move by having Utah, Kansas on Black Friday. I think he should be having like Kansas State or Kansas State, Iowa State on Black Friday and BYU, Utah on Black Friday. And, because like I think like the SEC noticed that nobody cares about Arkansas, Missouri being on Black Friday. They recognize that. It's just forced. The people know that. The Arkansas people know it. Missouri people know it. It's like, we're just playing each other because we got to. I mean, like, you didn't hear anybody talking about Arkansas, Missouri. And if you did see people watching it, it was like, oh my God, the SEC game in the snow. How nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think there's definitely some things that Yormark can improve on. I don't think he's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I do like him not being afraid to try new things, and I'll give him his flowers there. But he's brought in some of these West Coast schools to the Big 12 so he could add those late night time slots. And that's something that he's trying to add. Fox is bringing it in for those Friday night games. And although it's Utah and Kansas, yeah, Utah BYU would make more sense. But you have to keep in mind that you're probably got to really focus on making it those West Coast style teams to bring it on. Like, for example, I know we're going to be playing against Arizona, that non-conference game on Fox, and it's a late game. I think it's a 9 o'clock Eastern game for that one. So I'm not against it. I think that that's something that your mark should definitely look more into. But I don't think it's possible to make a perfect schedule. You're going to find somebody that's going to get upset, whether it's one way or the other. You got to find a way to get every brand in it you possibly can, especially in this new revenue sharing type of league. You got to try and keep everybody balanced. At least you don't want one of your teams to fall behind slightly or even super far down, because then you're losing a lot of traction. So I'm not against it, but I get where you're going at. Having the Holy War on Black Friday would probably be a good idea.
Oh yeah, I mean it'd be humongous, but it's like I've gotten to a point where it's like, I've been like convinced. I've been sold on it being the day before Thanksgiving. Like I'm kind of just like day before Thanksgiving or Black Friday. Just don't have it on Saturday because like people are gonna watch Alabama Auburn more or Ohio State Michigan more.
I
So
agree.
it's like,
I agree. Yeah, find a way to make those rivalries more pop out. Whether it's as I mentioned, whether it's the same week or you move one a week different, so you can find a way to stretch them out and highlight them. Use the history. I mean,
there we
obviously,
go.
Army Navy game deserves its own week. That is a very historical
Yes.
rivalry. But if you're talking about the Michigan Ohio State, talking about the Iron Bowl, you're talking about the Holy War, having them all on the same day. I don't think that's best for the brand, at least for a fan. If you're a fan of college football, if you're a fan of that team, you're going to watch it regardless. But if you want to make sure you can catch Michigan, Ohio State, if you can catch Alabama, Auburn, and BYU, Utah, you might, if you can sit there all day, but you're not going to get those lead ups, those exciting moments, unless you can find a way to maybe put them elsewhere during the season.
Oh yeah. Oh, and let's bring back Penn State Pittsburgh on an annual basis. that
I
that
wouldn't
that
mind.
kind of ends my note on that. But had to give
Yeah,
a quick shout out.
not against it, not whatsoever. Yeah,
There we go. Time for my Christmas list to set up, even though it's late July.
nice.
Alrighty, so we've got the NFL entering 2025. And I'm just looking at like the NFC East, right? I Last time we've had a repeat winner was the Eagles in the mid 2000s with Andy Reid. And the Eagles won the NFC East last year, and the Commanders were playing them in the NFC title game. Kind of makes me feel like the Commanders are going to win the NFC East this year. I mean, we know it's not going to be Giants or Cowboys. I mean, the Giants, I feel like they're going to make Brian DeBall a fall guy where it's like not his fault, but it's still his fault. I mean, he's not the general manager. He's not the moronic decision maker who gave Daniel Jones the contract extension after one good game or one good year. He's not the one who did that, but it's his fault. Bye. But like Cowboys, you're never going to see Jerry Jones let go control of the Cowboys. It's just never going to happen. Death, taxes, and Jerry Jones never letting go.
Yeah, that's true. When I'm looking at this NFC East, the Commanders definitely scream out to me as a team that obviously succeeded way more than you expected to last year. But Daniels was impressive. He was super impressive, and I think you obviously got to be curious, right? You're in the same kind of position as Washington fans well know about where RG3 was just a decade or something ago, and then that sophomore slump happened. Will you get a sophomore slump from Daniels? That's the biggest question. It's not going to help if he doesn't have Terry McLaurin as his wide receiver. There's obviously some holdouts there. He hasn't requested a trade yet, which makes you feel good about that, meaning he wants to probably stay in Washington. But I do like the Commanders. I think the Commanders is a team that you really need to watch out for in the NFC East. I'm a little bit more, I wouldn't say higher on, but I would say watch out for those Giants. I keep seeing some reports that things feel different in that camp. Things are looking different. You do have multiple quarterbacks battling. You got some more weapons. That defense is going to be pretty solid, Jackson, with Abdul Carter and the rest of that pass rush. I'm not saying they're going to win the division, but they could play spoiler, and they definitely could. So I think it's up to the Eagles and it's up to the Commanders to win that division. But if I had to go now in the end of July and pick who I think is going to win, I don't think they don't get back to back. I think that streak continues, and I'd go ahead and give that nod to Washington.
Oh yeah. Well, in the North Division for the NFC, that's wild. I mean, you got Lions, Bears, Packers, and Vikings just straight up killing each other. I mean, look, we saw the Vikings winning with Sam Darnold. It's not because of Sam Darnold; it's because of Coach O'Connell. Man, it's like O'Connell. I feel like he could have a janitor as quarterback, and they would be winning because of Kevin O'Connell. Man, and the South Division, it's just trash. It's Buccaneers and everybody else. That's what it feels like. And the West Division, I mean, it's basically the Rams and who knows between Seahawks and 49ers for second and third. The Cardinals, I mean, they're basically back. They're the retirement home of the NFL. I mean, I know the Colts were trying to be the retirement home, but I mean, when's the last time you ever hear of an elderly couple talking about wanting to retire in Indiana? It doesn't happen. They won't retire in Arizona, Florida, California, Texas. They don't want to retire in Indiana. Nothing against
Yeah.
Indiana, of course.
Weather's nice and state taxes are not there, so there's a lot of incentives for moving down to those areas. Yeah, Kevin O'Connell's a football mastermind for sure. Just kind of going around the clock with you here. I'm interested to see what JJ McCarthy's going to do. I mean, Justin Jefferson's going on record and saying, "Hey, you got to give this guy more time. He's basically a rookie. He's not going to be like a Kirk Cousins. He's not going to be like a guy that you're going to see right off the bat." And when you have a guy like Jefferson who's taking that leadership role as your offense, willing to go out on record and say that as a trusted player on your offense, I think you're going to have to give more patience to him. So that means there could be a slow start. And especially in a conference like, or excuse me, a division like the NFC North, if you have a slow start, you might regress. And I think Minnesota is easily, most likely on their way to have a regression after over going into last year. I'll be interested to see what Ben Johnson can do at Chicago. I know there's already some rough stuff and some conversations happening in training camp about him and Caleb Williams not on the same page. And that'll be interesting. I still think it's Detroit's division to win. I think even with Dan Campbell, even though he did lose a lot of his coaching staff, I think he still has what it takes. And I think that roster is still really solid. And to me, I think the Packers is the one that I'm just a little iffy on. I don't know how I feel about the Packers. And although Jordan Love, I think, is a great quarterback, I just don't know if they've done enough yet. They finally got that wide receiver. They finally drafted one in the first round, but is that going to be enough? We'll see happening there. That's what I feel about the North. I disagree with you about the South. I think the Falcons are a little better than what people are giving credit for. I think Michael Penix is going to prove a lot of people wrong, and they finally got some pass rush. That was one of their biggest issues on the defense last year for Atlanta. So I think Tampa's still the team to beat, but I think Atlanta will give them a run for their money. And I'm right with you on the other side when it comes to the West. I think it's the Rams division to lose. I think Seattle is going to do well. I think Darnold will step up and continue to do his things. I think he's learned. I think he's not seeing ghosts in the Pacific Northwest. So there's a lot of things to be excited for Seattle as well. But if I had to go out, and we can play this game now and say who I think is going to win it, I think the Rams will be the winners of the West. I think Tampa still takes the South. And if I had to pick, I'm going to still go Lions to the North.
Well, I just hope that Bryce Young's not declared a bust at the Panthers, but it's just like it's not even his fault, but it's still his fault, unfortunately, because of the fact you've got that moron Dave Tepper. I mean, he knows a lot about finances, but he doesn't know how to run an NFL team.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like many people know, right? It seems like it's a very crafty thing to do. And you have guys who you think would know how to do it, and you bring in coaches that think can turn this GM role, and then they lack something. It's a very well-rounded thing. And I think it's not just you, it's the people you bring around and your staff that you bring around and the amount of leverage and control that you give up. Speaking about Jerry Jones and turning into being successful, you're willing to listen to other people, you're willing to delegate certain responsibilities, not for self ego, but to make sure you're the most successful program as possible. Because at the end of the day, you're worried about having a successful team that brings a strong community that at the end of that does bring a good bottom line to your franchise that can help you continually stay successful, bring free agents in to might not draft towards the beginning, but you can still find gems in that recruiting process and that scouting process. You don't see that happen with some of these older owners like a Jerry Jones who's afraid to let go of control. We're starting to see it in college football, kind of putting this whole first circle, Jackson. We're starting to see it in college football. Mike Gundy, very perfect example of Oklahoma State. had coaches on his roster for 15, 16, 17 years. They go 0-9 in the Big 12 last year. He finally realizes, hey, the stuff's not working. It's an adapt or die type of league, and the NFL is exactly the same way. It's an adapt or die kind of league. I got to make changes. He made huge changes to his coaching staff. He did huge things with recruiting. He goes from an NIL budget of, I believe, about $4 million in 2024 towards about 18, 19 this year. And he's going to hopefully make some big changes for the Cowboys, of Oklahoma State Cowboys, might I mention. So there's just a lot of interesting things when it comes to adapting or dying. And you see it in both the college world now with this new revenue sharing, with the new executive orders they're popping out, with the new NIL and transfer portal. It's a crazy world, but there's just a lot of things to put into perspective. And you're not getting that with some of these owners in the NFL. You're not getting that. They're more worried about their ego or to make sure that they're not losing a buck.
Oh yeah, but it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with the NFC. But the AFC is always gonna be really powerful, apparently, because it's like the East. It's basically Bills and everyone else. I mean, it's like Patriots. We don't know what to make of them. The Jets. I mean, that it's a stinking trash heap with Woody Johnson running the show, and you got the Dolphins. I mean, I don't have faith in them keeping Tua healthy. Honestly, I have zero faith in that whole situation. I mean, like he was getting hurt so bad that we saw like breaking points with Crystal and Sager talking about him in 2022. That was bad right there. Like, yeah, it's like it's like I don't like how the Dolphins are handling Tua. It's worse than how the Colts handle Andrew Luck, right? The South Division is basically the Texans and everybody else. Although, like the Jaguars, they should contend, but the problem is crappy ownership all over the place. Titans, wait and see mode there. Colts, is Anthony Richardson looking like a bust? It's a likely yes, in my opinion. But then we've got like the North Division. Ravens and Bengals, they're going to be killing each other. It is what it feels like. I mean, the Bengals, if they don't have a really good season this year, I think some tough conversations are coming on Zach Taylor. And the Steelers, they'll find a way to get a winning season for sure. Right. If they're not, I think we're going to see some Andy Reid, Philadelphia Eagles end of tenure type discussions with Tomlin at some point. The Browns, I mean, that place is hell. That's a fate worse than hell. Like, I would not want to be a quarterback there. Like, I mean, who are they going? Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. We're going King Pick. What do we do, Skip? What do we do? Oh, well, we're not going Deshaun Watson. Like, I mean, like the fact your owner is saying out loud, oh, we're not sticking with Watson. We're sick of him. That speaks volumes right there. The West Division, I mean, it looks like Chiefs and everyone else, but like Harbaugh, he's always going to have a say, like at the Chargers. I mean, if the Chargers can't win with Harbaugh, they can't win with anybody. The Broncos, I'm curious to see what they could do with Sean Payton. Continue like they were able to win with Bo Nix last year. I mean, they did all right. I mean, they did better than how they did with Russell Wilson. And now we got like the Raiders, Pete Carroll era all over the place. And who'd have thought we'd be seeing Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll on the same coaching staff? I mean, if somebody told either one of us on Halloween of 2009, you're going to see Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly on the same coaching staff, we'd look at you like you're nuts because it's, Chip Kelly just beat Pete Carroll. That's not happening. Pete Carroll's working for him. Well, Chip Kelly's working for Pete Carroll now.
Yeah, insane. Yeah, I'll go backwards with you. I'll start from the West and go to the East. And I think it's going to be, I think that West division, the AFC West division, is going to be the most fun division in NFL when it's all said and done. I think when we look at the final records of those teams, the worst is going to have maybe 7 wins, could even be 8. Like, I think it's going to be one of those divisions where every team, and just for the record, I'd probably say the Raiders finish 4th, but they're 7 or 8 wins. Like, I do think they're still going to be really good. You got to give the nod to the Chiefs. They've been so good for so long, but I'm right there with you. I mean, Denver, Chargers, both of those teams, they're going to battle for wild card spots. We could be talking about 3 teams from that division making the playoffs, and that wouldn't shock me.
And we're back to having the Pete Carroll Jim Harbaugh rivalry again in the AFC West.
I love it. Yeah, the coaches in the AFC West alone are going to be fun just to watch. I mean, it's just really exciting to watch Carroll, to watch Harbaugh, to watch all Andy Reid, all those guys. It's going to be really, really fun to watch. And of course, Sean Payton, I forgot to add him into the mix. AFC North, the Steelers, it's insane. We'll see what this Rodgers saga does. It didn't work for the Jets. But I mean, I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit more successful in Pittsburgh. You mentioned with the Jets, they just never understand what they're doing. I think Aaron Rodgers had a little bit too much control of what he was allowing with the rosters. That's not going to happen in Pittsburgh. We've obviously seen that happen. DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers should be a pretty fun duo together. Them losing Najee Harris, though, I think is going to be an impact. Having Najee Harris in the backfield, Aaron Rodgers would have been really nice. So I'm interested to see what's happening there. I don't think they're going to shock the world and go, 17-0 or anything like that, but we'll probably hear them being in the hunt or find themselves in the final wild card spot once the season's already done. Baltimore is the team to beat in that division. I think Lamar is super hungry after what happened in the game last year against the Bills in the playoffs, being snubbed for the MVP, if you want to call that a snub. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you have to worry about. So I'm going to go Baltimore winning that division. I think you still got to give the Chiefs the West. The South will be fun. I think you're right with Houston. I think that, you got to look at some of those other players as well, some of those other teams. Tennessee is going to be fun to watch. I think they're going to be a really fun team to watch. I don't know if you're going to see them as a playoff team, but I think you can see them find
Cross my fingers.
Yeah, 7 or 8 game ceiling would be pretty fun to watch that happen. But I think Houston still goes, but that offensive line is going to be a big question mark, but that defense is so dang stout. And then the Bills are I think they're going to run away with the AFC East. I think the Bills are ready. I think the Bills are finally got the pieces they need if they can stay healthy to compete with Kansas City. But don't count out New England. I know we have for the last couple of years. Don't count them out. I think Vrabel alone is going to get them back on track. Drake May in his second year, the Diggs piece, what Diggs did with Josh Allen early in his career was very important. And bringing him in with Drake May, I think it'll be very impressive. Vrabel brings an entire new culture to that New England team that obviously needed it over the last couple seasons since they lost Belichick. So count New England as a potential wildcard team. I don't think they win a division, but I can see them fighting for the 6th or 7th seed in the AFC. But I think the Bills, this is the year for the Bills this year. I really do.
I hope it is for their sake, but because I've given up hope for the Bills on winning the AFC. I mean, it's just like it's kind of like I want to see them win the conference. I want to see them win a Super Bowl, but I'm just not seeing it. But I do feel like some people have already just kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater on Sean McDermott, like a few people, and they forgot how bad the Bills were prior to his arrival. And I really hope he doesn't get fired, which if the Bills were to fire him, that would be extremely dumb. But on the bright side, it would mean the Browns probably get him, make Stefanski the fall guy, and McDermott could probably turn around that dung heap in Cleveland.
Yeah, McDermott, if he was to be fired, it's because they feel like he wasn't living up to the potential of Josh Allen and letting him, rot. I mean, we're talking Josh Allen going into his 8th season in the NFL. Isn't that wild to think about? That he's going already in his 8th year. And McDermott's been the guy the entire time. He helped the Bills get out of the playoff drought, something that they were in from 1999 to 2017. And but if he's not getting to that next step, I think you have to eventually, if you continue to fall at the same step, even if that same step is the AFC Championship game, you might have to make changes. And whether that is the head coach or the GM or whatever the case may be, in order to make sure you can find a way to succeed in Josh Allen, who is easily the best quarterback that the Bills has probably ever had in the history of their franchise. Maybe Jim Kelly can fight for that because he went to 4 Super Bowls. But other than that, it's those two. It's 1A, 1B at the moment, which way you want to look at it. I believe in Sean McDermott. I do think that he can do it. But if he was to be fired after a season of them not making it to the AFC Championship or maybe even the Super Bowl, to find a better replacement and to help Josh Allen maybe make that next step forward, then I guess it wouldn't surprise me too much.
There we go. I hope things turn out well for Buffalo, but I guess we'll wait and see. I'd love for my Titans to have a better season than they've had the past few years, but we'll wait and see what happens. But of course, you have got some magic coming our way from Locked On Kansas State and 32 Blueprint. What have you got going on in your world, good buddy?
Yeah, appreciate that. Locked on Kansas State, bringing you content about the Wildcats every single day. Like not just Monday through Friday. I'm talking 7 days a week throughout the entire college football season. We're not taking any breaks. We're bringing you the Kansas State Wildcats every single day show. Be sure to check that out. YouTube, audio, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We're on there. We just hit 1,000 subscribers, so super cool stuff. And then bringing a new fantastic thing over on the 32 Blueprint Sports Network. That's a new project that I just started up covering the NFL, all 32 teams. You can check that out on YouTube, and we'll probably put that out on the audio feeds as well. But that's just starting off. That's just fresh. So if you want to be one of the first OG subscribers, you can go ahead and click that as well.
And you can check out old Christian on /Twitter and on Instagram and on TikTok. If you want some really good content on TikTok, Christian's your guy, all right there. And if you need like an easy access to kind of check out the magic he's making on Blueprint and on Locked On Kansas State, check him out on Linktree. You'll know where to find it. That's for sure. And of course, you can check out today's edition of Crimson Tide Live, the 48th edition, where August is near, fall camp is almost here, as Jeffrey, Coach Burts, and myself went over our take on the latest news and notes on the Crimson Tide, including some of the questions that we've got going on. And we went over lots of things. That's why you tune into Alabama The Voice College Football for much more. And Jeffrey at Only Talk Sports and myself take your calls on the 43rd edition of Crimson Tide Live, Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, I'm subbing in for Coach Smook, I believe, on Alabama Primetime Live, the 23rd edition. All right there. But it's going to be a wild ride. And if you love top-notch Alabama content, like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video to Alabama Boys College Football. And you can check me out on numerous episodes of the Jacksonian and check out my numerous collaborations with Talk with Austin, including our ACC predictions and Big 12 predictions and much more coming your way, all right here on Jackson Johnson 979. 320 subs, so 23 subs away from that magic number, 1,000 subscribers. Love to get there before the end of the year for sure. And if you want to hear more of what's going on the Jacksonian or on Alabama with the Voice College Football, check me out on Jats VOCFB on /Twitter and on Instagram and threads at Jackson Johnson 543908, where I've not only got numerous stuff on the Jacksonian coming your way, and I've got Crimson Tide Live Magic coming your way, including the next episode of the Jacksonian, where I'll be having Jordan Bowman and Tiger Paul Craven from Clemson at the Voice College Football celebrating their 4th season of Clemson Tigers Live / the All In Show. And with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, click on the notification bell so you never miss another video or another episode whatsoever. And we will see you soon. And have a happy Monday night, everybody.